Good afternoon, mailplussers. Another blazing hot day today, and I'm sure 2 days of roaring heat in a row classifies as a British heatwave. I'm here to give you a quick break from the rays by bringing you today's quiz. I'm Melissa Hartzell, and I'll be here to walk you through the process, helping you on your way to that sought-after prize, taking the form of a possible £1,000 cash pot. We've handpicked questions from an assortment of music, geography and astronomy to keep things interesting and to keep you on your toes. A few rules to note before moving forward into today's game. I'll be asking you 10 general knowledge questions. With 10 seconds to answer, a fast-thinking brain will help hugely, because if you answer all 10 questions correctly, you will win a share of the cash pot. If you end up getting one wrong, you'll no longer be in the running for the cash, but even if the money has evaded you this time round due to a slip-up, you might surprise yourself with how much you know by answering the questions regardless. And one final important warning, a touch screen can be your best friend and your worst enemy here, because once you've tapped, you can't change your choice, so be careful when picking your final answer. Lots of our players are setting a reminder on their phones for 12:15 every weekday, so they don't miss out on their chance of winning. When your questions do come up, you'll thank yourself for the alarm. So that's the gameplay blueprint given to you. There's just one thing left to do, and that's get on with the quiz. Here's question 1. Which city is the county town of Devon? Plymouth, Exeter or Torbay? Even though the name doesn't suggest it, it's proposed that Devon actually invented the Cornish pasty, the earliest recipe from 1510 being found in a document written in Plymouth. Pasties were often used to feed miners due to their unique shape, forming a complete meal that could be easily carried and eaten without cutlery. The crimped edge was used as a handle and disposed of due to the dirt. Exeter is the county town of Devon, a beautiful and historic city. It actually has a place in more modern history too, being the city J.K. Rowling lived in when she wrote most of the Harry Potter series, taking inspiration from the old town for her stories. Moving on to question 2. What sporting barrier was broken on the 6th of May 1954? 4-minute mile, 7-foot high jump, or 2-hour marathon? An incredible sporting feat that you might not have heard of and is labelled as the toughest running race in the world, the Marathon des Sables, a 6-day ultra-distance event that covers 156 miles across the Sahara Desert. Sounds absolutely unbearable if today is anything to go by. Larson Anazi has won the event an incredible 10 times. The 4-minute mile was a new record set by Roger Bannister in 1954, running just under the 4 minutes in a time of 3 minutes 59 seconds, which at the time was considered impossible. It shows just how far we've come as athletes, because that world record has been broken a number of times, including by Roger Bannister himself, and it's now down to 3 minutes 43 seconds, held by Moroccan Hisham El Garouj. Good with your athletics and cities? Let's see how you are with your cartoons. It's question 3. The Flintstones cartoon series is set in which city in Cobblestone County? Pebble Dash, Bedrock or Boulder? The Flintstones aired in 1960 and run until 1966. Originally, it was going to be called the Flagstones, but that name was already taken, so Joe Barbera changed it to the Flintstones. And as the theme tune goes, the prehistoric family are from the town of Bedrock. Fred's iconic catchphrase, yabba dabba doo, was the voice artist's replacement for the word Yahoo after hearing his mother say a little dabble do ya while cooking. Hearing his mum say it clearly stuck with him then, and it sticks with us now. So after the first 3 questions, we've still got 3,958 of you with us playing for the money. Well done to all of you. That's the practice out of the way. Now for the more testing questions. It's question 4. How many cars did the British car industry produce in April of this year? 197, 1,197, or 4,197? Amongst Britain's oldest car manufacturers is James Bond's favourite, the Aston Martin, founded as early as 1913, and the car first made an appearance in James Bond's Goldfinger with its DB5 model. The Brits only produced 197 cars in April, the lowest level since World War II, compared to the 70,000 in April 2019. And of course, only one thing is to be found responsible for this huge drop. The infamous coronavirus caused every major factory to close, but we'll be back on track, making up for lost time, I'm sure. We're almost halfway. It's question 5. In Sherlock Holmes, what is Watson's first name? Jack, James, or John? There's plenty of books, TV shows, and films that might remind you. Sherlock Holmes has been portrayed by a number of people, including Benedict Cumberbatch, Robert Downey Jr., Ian McKellen, Michael Caine, and even John Cleese. Mr. Watson takes the name of the latter actor on that list. His first name is John, although originally the author referred to his Holmes associate as Ormond Sacker, but elementary, my dear, Sacker doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Halfway now, everyone, and a few more have fallen victim to questions 4 and 5. 2,833 of you getting right. Well done. To Joshua 1, Gavin, Papa John, and Jacqueline 5. Well done. You're showing us how it's done. Clearing those hurdles with grace, and onto the second half. It's question 6. Which of these was reclassified as a dwarf planet in 2006? Mercury, Pluto, or Venus? There are 3 criteria that determine a planet. The first is that it has to be in orbit around the sun. The second is that it has self-sufficient gravity that gives it that spherical shape. And lastly, it's the dominant gravitational force in its orbit. Pluto did not fulfill the last criteria. Once a planet, it was reclassified as a dwarf planet. This has brought the solar system's planet count down to 8. But don't feel sorry for it. It's the largest of all the dwarf planets in our solar system, and probably enjoying its time as a big fish in a small pond. On to question 7. Which of these is not an accepted collective noun for penguins? Pod, colony, or rookery? Penguins have more in common with humans than you might think. They're among the few species that mate for life. It varies by species, but many penguins will revisit the same member of the opposite sex, season after season. A pod is usually the name given to a group of whales or dolphins, not penguins, and usually the collective name for them can vary depending on where they're found. A group of penguins in the water can be called a raft. A group of penguins on land can be called a waddle. With that in mind, let's waddle onto question 8. Which of these countries has won the Eurovision Song Contest? Estonia, Poland, or Croatia? The first British win took 11 years after the very first contest. Sandy Shaw won it for us with Puppet on a String in 1967, and it was Eurovision that gave birth to band sensation ABBA. Poland and Croatia are yet to win, but Estonia, who have participated in the final 5 times, won it once back in 2001 with the song Everybody by Tanel Padar and Dave Benton. I think that was a toughie. Lots of you being knocked out there. 482 of you getting it right, but 49% went with Poland and 17% went with Croatia. So 34% of you moving on in the game and still playing for our £1,000 cash pot. So John 147, Stephen 0, James 15, you clearly know your music because you got that right. And you had to cast your mind back all the way to 2001. Superb effort. 2 more to go now, so not long left. Here's question 9. What is the rotational symmetry of the Union Jack? 1, 2, or 3? You don't see them as often, but each British county has an official flag too. Kent, for example, has a rearing white horse on a red background, and Somerset has a red dragon on a yellow background. The Union Jack is made up of all the individual countries' flags in the United Kingdom, and it has a rotational symmetry of 2, vertically and horizontally. The Swiss flag has the most with 4, the flag being square as opposed to the more common rectangle with a centralised Nordic cross in the middle. And we still have 205 players in the game who are all coming up against the final question. Well done for getting this far. It's going to be a tough one, but let's see how you get on with today's final question. It's question 10. When did women get the right to vote at the same age as men in the UK? 1928, 1938, or 1948. A huge historical event to finish things off here. The very first women who were allowed to vote due to the Representation of the People Act in 1918 gave women over the age of 30 who met certain specific criteria the right to vote. However, that all changed in 1928 in what was called the Equal Franchise Act, which granted equal voting rights to women and men, both being allowed to vote at the age of 21. This added an enormous 5 million more women to the electoral roll and had the effect of making women a majority of the electorate in the 1929 general election, which was termed the flapper election, so quite the turning point in history. Well, what a ride that was! And we have 157 winners today. A huge congratulations to you. We have Mog484, John147, Marcia, Mystic18, Delco Steven 0. You did not step a foot or place a finger wrong. Well done. Remember, there'll be another game tomorrow afternoon, so maybe the adrenaline of that Friday feeling will see you through to the winning spot. Give it a shot. The questions might be in your favor. Spread the word to your friends and family. I'm sure some of them have an expansive mind too, so it's always worth them seeing if they can win. It's always a joy. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and keep learning those facts. You never know when it might come in handy. Enjoy the sunshine and have a great afternoon. Goodbye.